Patent trolls. Now, these are the kinds of companies, we talk about them a lot. They exist solely to collect patents and then take people to court to demand money. They're the thorns in the sides of tech companies, big and small. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has long defended the rights of innovators against so-called patent trolls, and they just announced a new effort. Joining us to talk about it is Elliot Harmon, an activist at the EFF, focusing on patent law, open access, and copyright reform. Welcome, Elliot.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So Reclaim Invention is a new project dedicated to stopping patent trolling at the university level. Why focus on universities?
It's kind of been, when you look at the long history of the fight against patent trolls, we fight them in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is in the courts. One of them is in the legislature. We're trying very hard to get patent litigation reform passed in Congress. But in addition to those things, you should look at the sources, the ways in which patent trolls get their weapons, which are patents. And to the extent that we can keep those weapons out of trolls' hands, we can do a great favor to innovation in America and everywhere. And one of those sources that's not always talked about very much is universities. Universities have, over the years, patented much more of the inventions that arise from their research. It's been a kind of growing trend ever since 1980 when the laws changed, making it easier for universities to file patents. And inevitably, a lot of those patents end up in the hands of trolls, either by outright selling them to them or by exclusive licensing agreements. And what we are saying is essentially universities should look at these practices and consider that selling patents to trolls kind of undermines the very purpose of university research in the first place, which is to spread innovation. Trolls create this kind of de facto tax on innovation, which is, very literally undermining a research university's entire purpose.
Well, that's surprised me so much, because you think of, maybe I'm naive, but I think of universities like a separation, that they, as opposed to big corporations. You hear a lot about, big corporations coming in like Uber and poaching all these employees from Carnegie Mellon or something. You think of them being these places that would be really against selling their patents. Why did they do it? Do they not know?
That's a tough question, and sometimes I don't always know exactly why they do it. And to be fair, a lot of universities have talked about this issue and have made steps to try to fight it. I mentioned this in my blog post. There's a couple of these kind of organizations of tech transfer offices. Tech transfer, that's what they call the offices at a university that manage the licensing and sales for these patents. A number of these organizations of tech transfer offices have actually talked about this problem and have even published guidelines saying when you're thinking about who to license patents to, you should license them to companies that'll actually use them to spread those inventions and not companies that'll just use them to try to extract licensing fees from others. So why do they keep doing it? I think that to a certain extent, it's that those good policy statements aren't enough. It's not enough to simply point out that the problem exists. You need to actually put a stake in the ground and change your patenting policies.
It almost seems to me like, when you're talking about universities, all of this education built around, creating things that are innovative and patenting them and everything, part of the process of a university obviously is educating on, the right way or the ethical way of doing whatever it is that they're teaching. It kind of seems like part of that should be part of the curriculum of, all right, here's the next step. You have a patent. How do you sell it? Who do you sell it to? It really seems like a no-brainer. Is it easy to assess from their perspective whether a business or whether an entity is in fact a patent troll or has plans to take that innovation and put it to good use?
That's a fair question. And in a way, the answer is no, right? Like, you sell a patent to a business that doesn't yet know exactly what it's going to do. There's always kind of that risk. On the other hand, we do know about some of those places that they're being transferred to. And the biggest one is this very notorious patent assertion company called Intellectual Ventures, which has agreements literally with dozens of universities and ingests lots and lots of patents from them on these exclusive licensing agreements. So no, you can't catch all of them, but you can catch most of them. And all we're really asking is that universities make that assessment of the past practices of whoever they're transferring the patent to, and whether that business gets most of its income from litigation or from other sources. We're just asking them to make that assessment part of the process before you decide who to sell or license a patent to.
Sure.
So you said you're working a lot of levels, and you mentioned Congress. Tell us a little bit about FASTER, the Fair Access to Science and Technology Research Act.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because open access is a topic that I'm very passionate about. What FASTER will do is require that any research that is publicly funded, i.e., scientific research or whatever kind of research is funded by the federal government, has to be available to the public after a certain amount of time after it's been published. And it's looking really good. I would encourage people to go to our website and send your Congress people a letter about FASTER. It's looking like it might actually finally pass this year, but we still need to make as much noise about it to Congress as we can. What's interesting is, to me, these two topics, open access to research and universities changing their tech transfer policies, to me, those two topics really go hand in hand, because in a lot of ways we're making progress. Universities are putting in place open access policies. A lot more research is becoming available to the public. But if that very same research is being used to litter the field with these landmines that could potentially explode on inventors and innovators in the future, then universities aren't doing their job.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully that passes. And if not, what can people do to support the Reclaim invention if they're at a university, working at a university or involved? What can they do?
I would encourage everybody watching this right now to go to reclaiminvention.org or just go to EFF.org, and there's a big link on the homepage there, and fill out our petition. Now, what the petition is basically doing is saying, look, as a student at a university, as an alumnus or alumna, as a parent of somebody at the university, as a faculty member, I want my university to take this issue seriously, and I want my university to agree not to sell patents to trolls. The petition has been up for about a day, and I think we've had 1,300 people sign it, which is fantastic, but we want to make a lot more noise. That's all step number one. Step number two is we need local people who are on the ground in those university communities, be it faculty, students, whomever. We need them to be the ones to then take that message to the university leadership. So you can take this petition and circulate it to all of your contacts and get hundreds of signatures on it. And then you can take the results of that petition to your university leadership and tell them, look, we need to commit to this right now. And we're eager to help people with that process. And in fact, you can even just email me directly, Elliot@EFF.org, and I would be eager to help you make sure that that message gets heard by your university leadership.